something like the U.S. Army in Vietnam. People rioting, going AWOL, riots. This is what's typical of a capitalist society, not of a communist society. And that's why I disagree with your fundamental point that there was a collapse of the Soviet Union. Because I think there was a counter-revolution in 1953 when Khrushchev came to power
56.
and reinstituted capitalism. And that's the position of Che Guevara at the African Asian Conference in Algeria, where he specifically accused the USSR of taking advantage of the developed countries and taking their resources.
Okay. I will say that everything that occurred in Afghanistan concerning the troops also occurred in Vietnam concerning the U.S. troops, with the exception, I would say, of selling their weapons. I never heard of a case of them selling their weapons. But as to your premise and my premise, that's a different discussion. Yes.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. And I wasn't going to say what I'm going to say, but the thing that I find not emphasized enough is, for me, the real turning point, rather than what this gentleman said, was the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. No capitalist imperialists, as the Maoists accused them, would go in to subvert the plans of U.S. imperialism against the PDPA government. Tens of thousands of volunteers from the Soviet Union went, risking their lives. And yes, during the end phase, when the Soviet Union was being affected in such a way that they were undermining their own intervention and ready to betray it, I remember telling members of the CP that I knew in Marin that if the Soviet Union does not finish this job in Afghanistan, crushing this counter-revolutionary action of the U.S. The U.S. began this operation before the Soviet intervention, and the issue of counter-spy that I gave to PSL, to Richard Becker's group, shows that months before the Soviet intervention, the CIA was attempting to overthrow this government. That is a critical turning point to me. And sure enough, within months, you had things like Pamyats and counter-revolutionary formations inside the Soviet Union. I'm not saying that the Soviet Union was socialist. As far as what he says, that means that all the things that the Soviet Union did after '53, like arming Vietnam, that the Maoists criticized Vietnam for accepting Soviet aid, are right, and that the Soviet Union was fully counter-revolutionary. I think I would call that a crock of something myself. And an abandonment of a model. It's not as pure as you wanted, and suddenly you're going to throw the thing out the window. So I disagree with his analysis completely. And I think it has counter-revolutionary aspects, because you're not going to be defending the Soviet Union when it was combating imperialism and aiding national liberation forces.
Okay.
Like a Trotskyite rightist
yes.
terror center.
Yeah, I will add one more point that really was, how shall I say, let's call it an error, that it was the same thing occurred in Afghanistan that occurred in the Vietnam. In Vietnam they had liberated zones, right? And that's what the U.S. called free fire zones, right? And so if they were liberated, okay, that meant that everyone was a target. Men, women, children, fighters, non-fighters. Okay? And on one hand, that is a true perception. Okay? because everybody was, or most everybody was involved in one way or the other in the liberated zone. Right? In Afghanistan, villages that were under the control of the, quote, bandits, okay, were also treated by the Soviet military in the same way. These villages were bombed. Okay? Men, women, children, they're all bandits or related to bandits. So they're all targets. Okay, this had a very alienating effect, of course, on a lot of people in Afghanistan who are not bandits. Bandits. Okay, let's mention that.